Hello everyone, my name is Awat and I am the developer of Awat's Otherworldly Maps, a vanilla plus mod for the game Age of Mythology that can be downloaded for free within the game's in-game mod browser. Since I have purchased a microphone, I will be documenting my journey as I create more maps for the next update of Awat's Otherworldly Maps. I will be naming this series Dev Diaries as I go through and show you how I developed this mod. Despite being called Dev Diaries, I just want to put the disclaimer out there that I'm not officially associated with the developers of Age of Mythology in any way, shape, or form. This is only going to reflect over the development of my own personal mod. I would like to disclaim that this is not a tutorial either. I have no formal training on coding and I am making this stuff up as I go. Therefore, I am unqualified to formally teach you about this subject, as I'm sure a lot of the practices I do are frowned upon in basic coding. This video should only be watched as a form of entertainment to see behind the scenes as to how I make this stuff for you guys. To start, I am going to use my template that I created in advance. The template is called AOM29. AOM stands for AWAT's Lazy Maps, which is the original name of the mod pack before I changed it to Otherworldly Maps. 29 indicates it is the 29th map. As you know, there are currently 28 maps publicly available for usage right now. I had originally canceled AWAT's Otherworldly Maps development, but I have resumed it now that they announced the Aztec DLC. The reason why the map pack was originally canceled was because I thought I had used all the content, but they were going to add more, then that gives me more stuff to work with, and therefore a continuation of the pack. Now I am going to go ahead and load the template and show you guys what it looks like. As you can see, it's pretty ugly and uneventful. It uses a bunch of default textures. It uses a checkerboard kind of terrain, just so I can see the elevation of the map. It uses the default Greek oak forest just as a placeholder. If I could find it here, that would be great. This is embarrassing. There we go. You can see in my template that all the basic stuff is already placed, such as gold, food, and berry bushes. And just like my other maps, it has 5 starting towers instead of the usual 4, and an extra relic, so for a total of 3 relics instead of 2. But besides that, it's basically a clean slate I can work with and swap things out as I need. Also, I have my custom colors enabled, so if you think the shade of red and blue are off, you're not crazy because I have a different shade of red and blue for my game. So yeah, today I feel like making a sort of island map for the new Aztec DLC because I feel like they are in a tropical region and an island map would be great. However, I specialize in land maps, so I'm gonna make it aesthetically like an island, but not gameplay-wise a water hybrid map. So here I took the little continent from Mount Olympus. I didn't have to take it from Mount Olympus. I just felt like doing it because I was lazy. It's not that hard. You just make a elevated landmass and center, an area ID, and you just place it. But here it is. As you can see, it has a lot of issues like things spawning outside the continent that it shouldn't be, and trees and animals are like kind of stuck to the cliff. And also, there's no place to zoom in and out. Like you're already maximum zoomed out because of the elevation of the continent. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to change some things to fix that. Okay, so I'm cutting out the boring coding parts, which take a while, and I'm gonna show you guys the fun, aesthetically different parts. So here I've already typed in the code and stuff, and I'm gonna reload the map with the new code and see how it looks. I've changed the continent cliff color to be a darker color so it's easier to see the outline. Additionally, I've made the continent larger so that there's more room to fight on for the players. But I still obviously need to make sure that things do not spawn off the cliff. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it water and see if that deters things from spawning down there. So I've gone ahead and changed the cliff color again for a more natural look, just for fun. And alongside that, I've added some water. In this case, it's the Chinese water for the green look, trying to achieve that aesthetic of you guys fighting on an island and whatnot. But you can see that we're obviously still suffering from quite a bit of issues here, such as the deer and cows are spawning right at the cliff, and that's really bad for gameplay because sometimes they get stuck there, and generally you just don't want that. And then the trees are obviously spawning outside of the continent, which is not good because trees shouldn't be in water. So I got to implement a code to fix all that and restrict them. So what I'm going to do is write a restriction that tells them stay away from water, stay away from cliffs when they naturally generate. I'm going to apply it to every instance of animals and trees on the map. It's not too particularly difficult, just a little tedious of finding every instance of animal and applying it because like the cow is one instance, the deer is one instance, the aurochs is one difference. There's just so many instances of animals I gotta apply it to. But that's pretty boring. So for the purpose of today's video, I'm gonna keep that out, and just do that off screen so no one has to worry about that. Instead, I'm gonna work on the visual stuff, which is probably what most people are interested in, making all the map look all pretty and nice. So in this case, you can see that I've added some terrain, a different type of cliff, and water, just experimenting what various looks can do. Actually, this clip is after a whole day has passed of me working on random things, and I've been testing different cliff types with different water types, different terrain types. Obviously, this is not the final look, and I'm gonna want to use Aztec terrain when that comes out, but for now, I'm just messing around. I've also went ahead and changed the lighting. Another thing that I worked on while you guys were gone was making the island rounder. I didn't want to lose its jagged shape completely as to keep it looking like a natural island, but at the same time, I didn't want it too jagged or that would make gameplay kind of difficult. Um, Another thing I was able to do was change the edge of the map so it doesn't match the cliff, if that makes sense. Each cliff has a pre-designated edge it comes with, and this had been bugging me my entire development career in the map. I finally figured out how to turn it off. It was really hard, but I finally did it. I'm gonna go back and change my other maps to have this feature turn off as well. Here's a fabricated example of what I mean. You can see that the tundra cliff doesn't look bad in this situation, but since it's the tundra cliff, it comes paired with tundra grass around it. And previously I thought there was no way to turn it off, so it would influence what design choices I made on certain maps to make sure the edges would match the rest of the terrain. But now that I'm able to turn it off, I can freely use whatever cliff type I want, such as this one, on any terrain I want. For now, I'm gonna go back and work on the aesthetics of the island map that we made together some more. I'm gonna go ahead and start implementing a sort of random feature that randomizes what water, what cliff, and what terrain you all get. If you guys recall, during the Cliff Center and Color update, I figured out how to make your maps have slightly different versions, like it loads different alternate versions. I'm gonna apply that feature here for various biomes and see how that goes. Coding that's gonna take a while though, because the way I do it is to input the looks I want manually. So I'm going to make each grass version manually, each cliff version manually, and then each sea version manually, and randomize them. So I'm going to skip the boring coding part and then show you guys the final results of each part once I finish them. I make them all manually instead of using the predetermined biome function so that I'm able to control minor details instead of having them be the same each time. This way, there's variation even amongst the same type of biomes. Right now on screen, you can see me cycling through the 8 versions I've programmed. They're not final, they're just placeholder for now until I can figure out what assets are going to be. Laying the groundwork now should make it easier once I come back to it, since by then I just have to update the old code instead of making a new one. I'm definitely out of practice because this took a really long time compared to what I usually do. Water and cliffs should be easier since there's only one thing to change in that versus as terrain, you gotta make a mesh of terrain and combine it together so it doesn't look too monotonous. Like for example, most of these have grass type 1, grass dirt type 1, and grass rock type 1 of various weights determined by a custom value put together. So like for example, my custom value for dirt, I weight it lower, so I made that value lower than grass, so that would be primarily grassy with dirt spots, as you can see with all the versions. But you can see it's grass and dirt combined together to make the ground look the way it does. It's not just one type of terrain, or else that would seem too boring and same. Also, please keep in mind that I have no formal coding experience, so the terminology I may be using could be completely wrong for all I know. You can see on this version I put only one type of terrain, and so it's uniform throughout. You typically want to avoid that. But yeah, with that out of the way, I'm going to change the water and the cliffs together, and I'll show you how they randomize all together. And obviously these are not final, I'm still working on it. It's a very early alpha, I'm just starting. Welcome back. It might not feel like a long time for you guys, but it's been a moment of me of working on this. Either way, you can see that whenever I refresh to a random seed, the cliff and watercolor should change now. It should vary a little bit. Um, yeah, they're all independently random of each other. So the water is random on its own accord, the terrain's random on its own accord, and so is the cliff. This is unlike AWA Unknown, where certain cliffs and oh, that shouldn't be happening. Okay, hold on. Let me try to figure this out. Okay, I am back from the future, and I should have fixed this now, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, as I was saying, on AWA unknown, cliff, water, and land types are all connected to each other. Like it is randomized, but by biome, so the entire things are connected. So for example, you'll get the marshy cliffs with marsh biome only. On this, however, they're all independent because I made the rules separate. Hopefully that makes playing this map several times more fresh for when you do get there. And I think I'm pretty good on the variations right now. I just gotta work on the terrain variation so it looks a little less boring and similar. I'm considered cutting out certain terrain versions, such as the Chinese grass, looks particularly ugly with very aggressively yellow dirt. I like the Greek's yellow dirt though. The Greek version is not too aggressive in your face like the other one is. On top of that, I gotta figure out some sort of unique gameplay mechanic to put on this map. So I'm gonna put something in the center sooner or later, just to spruce things up. Because right now, even though aesthetically it looks like a unique island, gameplay wise, it's still pretty much standard to a just flat island. Since a rule of thumb of mine is just to try and make all the gameplay different on all the maps, at least for the later ones. The earlier ones, I was kind of inexperienced and didn't know how to really do that, so you'll notice like Catalans and Bogdan might play out very similarly. But as for new ones, I'll try to change them. But that's gonna take a while to figure out, so for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna go ahead and fix up the food and town centers spawning close to the edge and show you guys what that looks like and call it a day. Welcome back from the future once again. It's been quite a few days, but I've been working on the code and I've successfully told everything to stay away from cliffs and water for the most part. I think what I had to tell was all the animals, the different kinds of animals, all the gold spots, all the relic spots, all the forest spots, even the random trees that spawn, the singular ones, and a handful of other things to just stay away from the cliff, and I've done it. You can see there's still some quirks like those cows against the edge there. I'll have to work on that a little bit, but for the most part, it's functional. You could definitely play it in its current state. Still a bit boring though. I'm gonna try to figure out what to put in the center of the map. King of the Hill is in the middle of the map right now. That's just a debugging tool I use to see if King of the Hill works and just to have a reference point as to where the center of the map is so I can see how relative the spacing and everything is. But yeah, I think I'm gonna sell the video here since most of the fun decorating part has mostly dried up. I do plan on randomizing the forest types, but that's gonna take a while, and also making this the unique gameplay mechanic on this map is gonna take a while too. And then after all that's said and done, I have to add the little details like flowers and bushes to the map. As you can see right now, the map is just simply grass. And even then, we probably wouldn't even approach the 50% way mark of finishing the map as I have to do more tune-up and other things to make sure the map is functional in all game modes and in basic gameplay. Then once I reach the 50% way mark of the alpha, I'll go ahead and play test it myself against a bot, and then I'll have bots play against each other and see how they act. If they act in any sort of dysfunctional way, I gotta fix that before I push it live, because I know a lot of you like to play comp stomp or co-op against bots. So after some more revising and tune-up, then and only then will it be available for my beta testers. Beta testers will be able to play PvE and PvP on the map and share it with their friends, and then after some testing, then it'll see even more revisions, and then after those revisions and refinement and another wave of testing, it will then be able to be seen by the public eye. For beta testing, I like to choose people with a complete understanding of how the game works and not just how to play it. By this, I mean it's similar to how some people could be good at a sport but not understand kinesiology. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. A sport and a game are both just meant to be played. You don't really have to deeply think too hard about it most of the time. It doesn't mean that I ignore all complaints except for a few. It just, in the early stages of development, with me being the only developer, I have to make sure to be as efficient as possible. But as you can see by the definitive update, I will get around to public feedback, such as when I removed all the nature enemies and changed the forest lines to be all green. And there are many times in which a lot of people give conflicting feedback. I'll just have to take the majority word for that one, or make a personal bias choice. But yeah, that's all I have to say for my first development diary. I hope this gave you all insight as to how I go about doing these things and how much work goes into it. And I thank you all for watching. Hopefully I'll have an excuse to make more in the future.